Taking a look at some of the other endocrine glands that we still haven't talked about, the pineal gland, it's in your brain, so it's near the upper portion of the thalamus. It secretes melatonin. Melatonin, I will have questions about this on the test. Melatonin is important because it's involved in the regulations of circadian rhythms of the body. So those are going to be released typically during the night. Very important to regulate your reproductive cycles, probably more active in puberty than other times of your life. So pineal gland, small gland in your brain near the thalamus, secretes melatonin. The thymus lies between the lungs and right under the sternum. It secretes thymosins. They're going to affect your T lymphocytes, which are very important for immunity. This gland is the largest in children, and then it shrinks as you get older. So as your body builds immunity, these T lymphocytes are released. They're very important. As you get older, those shrink. The thymus will actually shrink, which will affect your immune system. And that is one of the reasons that, you know, older people are more likely to get pneumonia and things like that. Their immunity is not quite as strong as it was once they were younger. Looking at some gonadal endocrine glands, ovaries produce estrogen and progesterone. So both of these are important for, here again, regulation of the menstrual cycle, reproductive cycle. The placenta, if a woman becomes pregnant and the placenta is present, it's going to produce hormones by itself, which is another reason when you talk about pregnant women and their hormone levels, their hormone levels are going to surge, and that can create, people that cry. Their emotions are kind of all over the place, and that's really correlates with their hormone levels. The testes in the males produce testosterone. That's the main hormone that they produce. Some digestive glands secrete hormones, just so you know that. Other ones, your heart secretes an atrial peptide. That's going to affect sodium in water. Kidneys secrete erythropoietin. That's important for blood cell formation. We talked about that a little bit when we talked about red blood cells. These two probably won't be up on the top of questions that I would ask about. Stress and health. So things that you do that might affect your hormone or your endocrine system. Anything that might be a stressor to your body is going to threaten homeostasis, so keeping things stable. And you probably notice this when you've been very busy, you get run down, it affects your immunity, things like that. A lot of college students, not so much during finals week because their adrenaline is kicked in, but a lot of times like the week after semester tests, a lot of times students will get sick because they've stressed themselves out so much. So stress can be physical, too much physical activity, psychological, that would be studying stress, things like that, or a combination of the two. If I stay up too late, that's going to affect my physical being. If I'm stressed out over these tests and my grades and things like that, that's going to be a psychological stress. Physical stress will threaten the survival of tissues, so too much overuse of the body not getting enough rest, things like that. Some tissues can actually be overused and die. Other things, extreme cold, if you're outside too much, that can provide physical stress. Prolonged exercise, too much exercise, overdoing it, infections. Prolonged exercise, having children that, I've had 2 kids tear their ACL, both times the surgeon has talked about how anymore athletes work year-round and we don't get much break. That's not very good for our bodies. It doesn't give it a time to heal. And then those tissues, those ligaments, those tendons and things like that are overused and those tissues are damaged. Psychological stress can be from something real, or it can be something that you're, I don't want to say making up, but kind of stress that you bring on yourself. Anger, depression, fear, grief, sometimes even over-pleasant, over-excitement about something can cause stress. For example, if you're so excited for Christmas break that you can't sleep at night, that would cause stress. Other things, fear, I'm thinking of students. Little worries, things that you worry about, whether it's opposite sex, grades, parents, family things, all of those would fit under psychological stress. Any response is going to be needed to try and keep the body as close to normal, which is homeostasis, keep it in that normal range. The hypothalamus is basically the part of the brain that controls your stress. It involves the alarm stage and then your resistance stage. The alarm stage is your fight or flight, so that's when you get all worked up over something. So, for example, you go to a scary movie. That scared, frightened feeling would be part of the alarm stage. You get teacher hands back a test. You have a horrible grade. Your body has that horrible feeling of panic. That's the alarm stage. During the resistance stage, CRH from the hypothalamus is going to go to your anterior pituitary and increase ACTH to the adrenal cortex. So during both the panic and kind of the getting over it stage, hormones are very important. Cortisol. Cortisol comes from the adrenal cortex, so part of your adrenal gland. It's going to form glucose. It's going to increase your blood sugar levels. It's going to increase fatty acid in your blood sugar levels, things like that. A decrease in lymphocytes. This is probably the one that causes you the most to get sick. So during stressful times, lymphocyte production actually slows down. They're not produced as much. That lowers your resistance to infections, so even like a cold, flu, things like that. And it actually can lower it enough that it can increase your chances for cancer. They have found people who are high-stressed people, maybe they have a high-stress job, something that causes a lot of stress in their life, increases their chances of cancer. So step back and relax a little bit. Too much stress can lead to high blood pressure, ulcers, gastrointestinal ulcers, stomach, intestines, things like that. Atherosclerosis is hardening of the arteries where your blood vessels will actually kind of shrink, and that will add to your high blood pressure. So too much stress is not good for you. You need to find something to lower that stress if you have things that are going on. Exercise is a good thing for that. Make sure you get enough sleep. Other hormones, glucagon, growth hormone, are going to help use up energy. So they're going to help with stress. ADH and kidney retention of water will increase blood volume, which will increase your blood pressure a small amount. So that's one way that you respond to stress. Not going to read through this, just want you to see, starts basically in your brain. Pituitary is still part of your brain. Gonna go to your adrenal cortex, so this is on your adrenal glands, both of these here. Norepinephrine is gonna cause this to happen. Cortisol is gonna cause that to happen. And you guys can look through that. And that's the end of your endocrine system.